sir. First and foremost, we'd like to thank you for joining the live stream. Always good to see you here at Elmore Gymnasium throughout the many seasons you've been here present. First, we'd like to get started about the conference itself. We know that basketball is coming to an end, and now football is getting ready to start up. What went into the process of starting the spring season the way you did with the multiple fall sports joining in?
You know, it was a process that we started back in the fall. We were one of the first conferences to make the decision to move to the spring. We established our schedule early. You know, a lot of what people were asking, can you do a spring and a fall? That is the reason why we settled on 6 games in 8 weeks. So we'll have opportunity to have 2 bye weeks. So if there are some COVID issues or some stoppages, we'll have the ability to fill those dates in. And we're starting to see that happening now. Championship game May 1st. So you're talking about May, June, July, August before you start playing again. So we thought that that 4-month break would give an opportunity for the teams to be able to heal and do the things that they needed to do. So when you start talking about putting in the COVID protocols and things of that nature, we learned a lot from basketball, obviously, and we looked at what the other conferences were doing football-wise in the fall. We took a lot of their information and tried to merge it. So we feel pretty comfortable where we are. We feel pretty good with our protocols, and we feel comfortable that we're going to be able to go through the season and be able to have that championship game on May 1st.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that, especially from both sides, as it's going to be a really competitive spring season. Also, Dr. Mcclelland, we talked last season right around this same time in March about how we were trying to make the conference more competitive. However, you didn't tell us up your sleeve that you would have 2 teams from Florida joining us from the MEAC. What went into that process, and how happy are you guys so far with the state of the SWAC coming into next season as well?
Well, you know, I didn't know in March that that was going to be an opportunity. You know, it really started with Florida A&M doing a study looking at where they were within the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, and a lot of it had to do with travel. So they have a lot of natural rivalries here. And when you saw some of the teams leaving the MEAC and they started to assess what was going to be best for them, and then ultimately they saw the forward trajectory that we have within the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Leading attendance in football 42 of the last 43 years, and a lot of these changes are football related. Although Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman, they come in loaded across the board in all 18 sports. But when it came to football, they looked at significant savings in travel. They looked at the crowd sizes that we have. They looked at the ability of being able to host the championship game and keeping the revenue. And it was something that was enticing to them. So they commenced a study. All of that information came back and said, when you look at the 2 conferences, SWAC is probably a better fit for you financially, geographically, and also from a standpoint of your fan base, your bands, all of that from a cultural standpoint. So when they reached out to us, are you interested? Obviously, we said yes. And then we were able to go through the process and get them in. Simultaneously, the board member that's on Florida A&M's board is actually the chair of the Bethune-Cookman board.
Wow.
So he was able to hear the presentation, see all of the data, and said, hey, would you be interested in Bethune-Cookman University? And we said, obviously with FAMU coming in, it would be a natural fit. We have 2 Florida schools. You know, we have travel partners, and we were able to get Bethune-Cookman in. And when you talk about where we are, you know, the level of partnerships that we've been able to generate in this pandemic, the level of television that we've been able to generate in this pandemic, obviously the ESPN, and we were able to get NBA TV for basketball. And there's a lot more to come. So it tells me that we're definitely moving in the right direction. There's a lot of interest within the Southwestern Athletic Conference from sponsorship, television. So a lot of more work to be done, but definitely we're headed in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you touched on that as far as the recognition, because amidst the pandemic, we've seen a lot of recognition, whether it's been from Chris Paul wearing a different HBCU, plenty of SWAC teams, paraphernalia during the bubble, as well as we've seen a lot of conversations being held. And then last month, we saw ESPN highlighting several HBCUs, especially a couple of SWAC schools, Jackson State being one of them, during the month of February. How much does all of that play a part in recruiting and especially gaining more and more talent here in the SWAC?
It helps tremendously. It shows everybody who we are and what we're able to do on the field of athletics and also in the classroom. And that's what why TV is so important. It shows what we can do, and it shows our student athletes, and it highlights the Southwestern Athletic Conference. I never would have thought that the pandemic would have given us that great level of a platform, but it did. And I think our coaches, our administrators, our presidents, ADs, SWAs have done an excellent job of being able to sell their programs and show what we're all about. We know who we are, but now there's a different eye. And you see a lot of the recruits. You see some of the 5 stars that are choosing HBCUs. You're seeing the 3 stars and the 4 stars in football choosing the HBCUs. And we have a great brand. We play for a national championship. You can get on TV. You can go pro. You can get drafted in the first round, or you become a doctor, lawyer, teacher, a firefighter. You can do here where you can do anywhere else. And I think that's the most important thing. It's a family environment. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that you graduate. We're going to have our hands on you. So all of the things that the big institutions are talking about, we've been doing it for years. It's a family environment. And through this pandemic, a lot of people have been able to see what we have known about ourselves for quite some time.
Absolutely, and that's always a great thing. So we're getting into conference play and conference championship game later on here for basketball in the month. What played a part in from you guys originally having the games at the respective higher seeded teams arena now going into the Birmingham venue?
Well, there were a couple of things. Our ADs and SWAs voted at the beginning of the season not to have mandatory COVID makeup games. That is the reason why we stayed with the 18-game format. So ultimately what we said was if it's COVID related and if the 2 schools can get together, you play. But if you can't, then that game is not going to be mandated to be made up. We're going to get as many of the 18 as we can. And we created an unbalanced schedule ranking system. So we knew that everybody was not going to have the same number of games. But we wanted to take a look at who played who. So if you are 8-0 and your 8 wins came from the bottom 4 teams, then that's not going to be as good as somebody that's 6-2 and 2 of those losses came from the top 2 teams and 2 of the wins came from the top 2 teams. So it gave us an ability to kind of take a look at, because ultimately what we want to do is send our best team. And that ranking system gave us that ability. But with all of the stoppages, we wanted to be able to give as much fairness as we could, because none of this is as fair as a regular 18-game schedule.
Right.
So
Right.
we felt like that was one factor in saying, hey, everybody come to one central location. The second thing that ultimately put the nail in the coffin to move the tournament is that the NCAA required 7 consecutive days of testing. And you have to test the Saturday prior to the championship game on that following Saturday.
Right.
And they're going to send the airplane to Birmingham, and whoever wins is going to get on that airplane on Sunday, and they're going to go to Indianapolis, and they're going to have another 7 days of consecutive testing. And we felt like it wouldn't be prudent to have teams to travel this Monday, then Thursday, then Saturday, and then turn back around and travel Tuesday to a home site, and then come to Birmingham on Thursday.
Right.
We just thought that it was best to bring everybody to a central location, given, the disparity of the number of games that have been played and the ability for us to be able to send a COVID-free team to the NCAA.
That's extremely awesome, and I'm extremely glad that you guys were able to come out with that outcome, as it looks extremely beneficial so far and will be whenever we get those champions crowned.
I hope so.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Mcclelland, one last question about the SWAC.
Sure.
When we're getting now into the end of the pandemic, hopefully, things are starting to clear up. We're seeing more and more states open up here and there. A lot of questions have been asked, particularly about the Magic City Classic game at Birmingham this coming April. A lot of fans have been wondering, will there be tailgating, maybe in the possibility if things start to brighten up in the future?
Outside of my realm in the commissioner's office, we don't get involved in individual games. That's up to the promoters and the institutions. And in this particular case, it's up to the entity Bruno Events that's running the Magic City Classic. But keep in mind, a lot of this is still generated by the city and the local county health officials. They will tell you what you can do and what you can't do. And I do not foresee, given where we are, even in the next month or 2 months, that they're going to open it wide open. Again, we wanted to play football, and we saw the level of excitement from our student athletes and being able to participate in the sport of football with Alabama State and Southern and all of our sports. This is going to be unusual. It's going to be not as we have been accustomed to, but it is football. And what we anticipate is let's play some football this spring, and we can get back to normal in the fall.
Dr. Mcclelland, we appreciate you for joining us here on the
Thank you.
live stream. We're extremely excited, not only for our Alabama A&M home team here, but for the conference overall and the direction you have it going under your helm. We
I appreciate
you
it.
again.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.